you to get together. Put your hands together one time. I want you to get together.
Welcome back, everyone. Please take your seats. Welcome back. We had really a very interesting and an inspiring first session this morning, hearing from the legislator the policy views. The next half hour will bring us really fully up to speed with the latest thinking in the two industries that together are shaping connected driving and mobility. And I'm talking, of course, about the automotive industry and the telecoms industry. Are they competitors? Are they partners? Or both? Who is driving whom in this race for customers and business? And what are the challenges that they see, and what do they need from the regulator? So first we will have the view from the automotive industry. So Erik Jonnaert, please come to the stage, and I'll briefly introduce you. Erik is Secretary General of the European Automobile Manufacturers Association, ACEA, since 2013. ACEA, of course, brings together all the major manufacturers of passenger cars, vans, trucks, and buses with production in the European Union. And prior to ACEA, Mr. Jonnaert held various leadership roles at Procter & Gamble in Europe and Asia. And in all, Erik has over 25 years of experience in public and regulatory affairs. Mr. Jonnaert is also Vice Chairman of the iMobility Forum and on the board of ERTICO, or ITS Europe. And he is on the Global Agenda Council of the World Economic Forum, focusing on the future of automotive and personal transportation. Erik, please.
Thank you very much, Sigrid, for this kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, also on behalf of ACEA, welcome to this beautiful event organized by FEBIAC, with my sincere thanks and appreciation to FEBIAC for the partnership and the great collaboration to make all this happen. At the same time, I want to wish them success with this next edition of this beautiful Brussels Motor Show. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard before lots of perspective of going digital, the future of connected autonomous cars. And in my presentation, while I want to stay in that course of being optimistic, I don't want to climb on a drone vehicle too high in the sky. I want to be optimistic, but also realistic about how we as an automotive industry are going to move forward on these challenges. Sigrid talked about ACEA. You know, we represent 15 of the largest manufacturers of passenger cars, buses, and trucks. And for all these manufacturers, going digital is not only going to be the future, I would say the future is now. Everybody is already working on it, and frankly, if you visit the motor show later on, you will see that almost all brands have connected vehicles for the time being in offering and in their portfolio. We see currently a trend in the industry. On the one hand, you have investments made to come up with more connected vehicles. There's a lot of talk, a lot of efforts undertaken to develop more autonomous vehicles. And the future will, of course, be one where both come together, where we're going to come up with connected, highly connected, automated vehicles. It's clear that this whole debate around connectivity allows as well us as automotive industry to think more about the future and to reinvent ourselves. This together with the other big players in the automotive industry, suppliers and others. Clearly, connectivity and the technology you already see today are the results of major innovation efforts. And you heard it already before, our industry continues to be the number one when it comes to private investment in R&D in Europe. Together with suppliers, our manufacturers invest more than 40 billion euros per year. And when we talk about the future after connectivity, this automated driving, everybody sees the potential of it. I mean, here again, you heard already quite some figures this morning, but here are a few more figures. Boston Consulting estimates that by 2030, autonomous vehicles represents a global market of 44 million vehicles. KPMG has estimated that for the UK alone, this would add value to the economy up to an extra 1% of GDP, while creating, more jobs across the entire value chain. And of course, with this wider economic impact, there's also the benefits which we heard about already this morning: increased productivity, reduced traffic congestion, and efficiency gains in the transport system. So we as an industry describe all the benefits to society that highly connected vehicles can bring. And I'm not going to dwell over that once again, because it was mentioned very clearly in earlier presentations. But it will allow us clearly to increase the safety of vehicles, which in turn will require more efforts to ensure better communication between vehicle and infrastructure, but also between vehicles. Yeah. It will allow us to come up with cleaner vehicles, reducing the environmental footprint of mobility, thanks to new applications on traffic and parking management, allowing us to reduce traffic congestion, and at the end will lead to more efficient mobility, allowing us to play also as automotive industry a much more constructive role when it comes to looking at solutions for urban mobility. We see it as an opportunity in the automotive industry to form new alliances and partnerships. It was said before, and we recognize it. We are starting to do it. Every OEM started to develop new partnerships with new players. Obviously, let's start from within our automotive industry. We're not going to be able to make a difference in this area if we don't continue working together with our suppliers, providing also some of this technology, but also with our dealers. On top, it will mean working together with other players, partners from outside the automotive industry, like the telecom industry. Because only together we're going to be able to develop new services, and it will inevitably lead to increasing convergency between sectors. You already see today, and it's not, that's why I say the future is now. You already see today new business models being developed by several OEMs. New business models offering new mobility solutions, like car sharing schemes in which almost every OEM is investing today. And all these mobility services will complement existing business models. And somebody said this morning, the future is more integrated mobility solutions across modes. And our industry is supporting that idea. It's important that as we are moving forward, we're looking for better solutions to integrate transport modes instead of what we've seen sometimes in the past, where certain transport modes were played against other transport modes. The future is one of further integration. What all that will mean is smarter mobility will also mean more sustainable mobility. The way we see the future in the automotive industry, we know there are a lot of challenges, perhaps especially on decarbonization. Yeah? The future will be one where we are able to combine solutions addressing the decarbonization challenge with the digitalization which offers new opportunities. So at the end should lead to more sustainable, more efficient mobility. A recent study which we as SEA contracted out to Ertico has demonstrated that cooperative intelligent transport systems have the potential to reduce CO2 emissions with an extra 20%. So if tomorrow we embark on a new debate on how we can further decarbonize transport, and when we're going to have another discussion on targets. Clearly, besides continue to invest in better alternative powertrains or optimizing combustion engines, ITS will on top offer new opportunities to address the challenges we are facing today. And talking challenges, what are the big ones when we move forward on connectivity and automation? And we identified three. One, we need to find ways to strengthen connectivity. That means, and that's the subject of a dialogue which we recently started with the telecom sector, how can we improve network coverage and network reliability? If tomorrow you drive with a highly connected car from Belgium to the Netherlands or from the Netherlands to Germany, you want to make sure that on the highways at least, the network coverage is not interrupted, especially if through that network you're going to have access to important safety-relevant applications. There's a need to do more on data coordination. Question is, do we have today the infrastructure to handle data for millions of cars? Again, data communicated between vehicles infrastructure must be accurate, reliable. And I touched upon infrastructure. So urban planning is going to be the other thing, the other area which will have to be covered when we want to move forward on connectivity. Next to strengthening connectivity, it's going to be important to facilitate the uptake. And how are we going to do that? Clearly, there's going to be need to ensure that all the systems can work together. Interoperability will be the name of the game, which will require, of course, more work on standardization. And there, probably our industry hasn't done that much yet. And we can learn also from other sectors, like the telecom sector, to do more in this area. The last, but not least, very important challenge is, how can we all make that happen while ensuring security, privacy, and collaboration? I mean, you heard a lot talking before about the need to provide third-party access to data in the car. Again, we as industry are open. Yes, we are ready to provide access. However, it cannot be at the detriment of the security and the safety of the driver and the integrity of the car. So it raises questions also on liability when something goes wrong. Same question on the ownership of the data, the protection of personal data. How do we organize cross-border data flows? All questions which we are in the process of addressing within the industry and together with others. Now, if you look at these three challenges, they touch upon regulatory environment as well. And so we did a bit of a mapping of what are now the regulatory challenges for us in the automotive industry when we want to proceed on coming up with highly connected and highly autonomous vehicles. And you see a bit of a map here, and I'm not going to go in all the details here, but some of the issues which need to be addressed when it comes to connectivity. Clearly, I mentioned already privacy. We have data protection, the third-party access standards. When it comes to automation, it will have an impact on how we type-approve cars. The liability, the Vienna Convention was mentioned, and so on. And altogether, of course, infrastructure demands and consumer acceptance will be important. Now, these challenges are being addressed. A lot of work is going on through the institutions, and I'm not going to go into detail. Here you see both at global, European level, national level, a lot of initiatives, good initiatives are taking place. However, we are a bit overwhelmed. We ask the question, can we drive more coherency in all these legislative and policy interventions? It's a bit all over the place, and we need urgently more coordination in this area. What do we as OEMs then see as the right conditions for connected driving? I mean, again, key objectives for us are how do we protect the driver and his and her privacy? How do we allow for secure and safe connectivity? The question is not, do we want it? Yes, we want it. But we want to make it, or make it happening in a secure and safe way. And we need to clarify roles and responsibilities, because also that will change with this new technology. So here are for us some of the conditions to be looked at. Clearly, data, I mean, somebody said data is the gold of the new world. Data is the currency of the digital world. And so everybody wants, these days to have access to data, own data. So there's a bit of a struggle for data these days. And we as OEMs are fine to give access, but again, it cannot happen just like that. Just giving third parties unlimited, uncontrolled access to vehicle data would create issues, and we want to avoid that. Okay. Protection of personal data will be paramount. If we tomorrow want consumers to trust these new vehicles, we need to be able to provide them reassurance that we will respect their privacy. Yeah? No data sharing without contract or without consent. That's why ASEA, we recently, with all the manufacturers, agreed on a set of data protection principles, which boils down to, we're gonna go for privacy by design. Yeah? Next one, and that's a tricky one, where we as industry say, no third-party access to data without security, safety, and liability. One of the issues today is when we say access to data, it is as if, everybody understands what we mean by data. We need to be a bit more specific. There are vehicle-specific data. There are consumer-specific data. We need to start classifying that. And we are starting some work in this respect. For some data, it will be easy to get access. Others will be proprietary, will be confidential. So we need to have a debate which is going in a bit more detail than we have seen till now. Because at the end of the day, vehicle manufacturers will not want to be held liable for third-party applications if something goes wrong. And it triggers the question on how do you then address the liability of those third-party providers of applications. Yeah. We have been talking internally about how to address this, and so one of the concepts we are coming up with as OEMs is the idea of creating a concept of an extended vehicle. Yeah? It's a normal vehicle with external software and hardware extensions for some of its features. And we think it provides the best technical solution for optimal vehicle integration, data security, data protection, and system viability. Because that would allow us to address some of the concerns which are out there, address some of the demands which are out there, because people want to have access, so we can give access to data then through this extended interface, but make sure that it's done in a safe and a secure way. Again, this is an area which triggers still lots of discussion, and on which we as an industry are prepared to keep having a dialogue on with all key players in order to make sure that we move forward on this one constructively. I conclude. Connected driving clearly presents an opportunity for us as an industry. It's clear we want to move away from being just hardware providers to really become integrated mobility solutions providers. And that's how we see also the future. But again, safety and security will be key drivers for success. It will only be possible if we work together with others, other sectors, also outside the automotive industry, and also with the regulators, because we need a more coherent and consistent policy framework to enable and accelerate the deployment of this new technology. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Erik. And let's now please find out what the telecom sector has to add to the picture. We're really delighted to welcome Mrs. Dominique Leroy, the CEO of Proximus, as our next speaker. Please come to stage. Mrs. Leroy is, I can truly say, one of the leading executives in Belgium and in Europe. She has a great presence, a great exposure. Only last week she was elected Manager of the Year. She started her career at Unilever and she joined Proximus in 2011, was appointed CEO of the group in 2014. She has pledged to bring the company back to growth by this year, 2016, it says on my note. And she's actually a firm believer that the connected world should help people and organizations to live better and work smarter. So today, she will tell us how Proximus wants to help resolve not only some of the mobility issues here in Belgium, but also, and I quote, how it can help the automotive industry reinvent itself. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I think the fact that I'm standing here is already an expression of a lot of stuff that are going on in the new connected world. I think it's probably the first time that you invite someone from the telecom sector to this type of European automotive conference. So in that extent, I think it really highlights that we are more and more dependent on each other if we want tomorrow to create this new world where highly connected cars will be our day-to-day life. And that's a bit the angle I want to bring in my presentation, but I will first highlight a bit what mobility means. I know that you have looked at that this morning as well, but I think from a telco perspective, we look at mobility in a bit more holistic way than only from car. Mobility, it's not only about cars. It's about how you can manage hybrid transport, how you can connect train transport to car transport to even bicycle transports. And I think that's a dimension I want to bring here to tell you, yes, cars are important, information from car are important, but if you want to solve mobility as a global theme, it will not be sufficient to take information just from the car industry. And so, I mean, these are stuff that you probably know. These are some Belgian figures, but mobility is an increasing challenge for every country and also mainly for economics, because we lose quite a lot of time and quite a lot of money on mobility. It's not going to stop because, lucky you, the car industry is still growing. There are still more people and more cars to be sold. So in that sense, the problem of mobility will remain, and we need to find ways, and I think new technology is a way to help solve some of the mobility problem in the country, but we need to think differently. We need to think as citizen, as enterprise, as technology in a different way and more together. I'll highlight some examples. I think we can try to see how we can optimize further the traffic flow and to a certain extent, and I know I'm probably not making you happy if I say that, but sometimes decreasing the need of individual transport. If you look at optimizing traffic flows, I think the first element there is about monitoring mobility, and there what I want to highlight is it's not only about cars. We, through geolocation, through following on an anonymous basis the movements of people based on their smartphone, we can really track and monitor the mobility ecosystem from your house to your bicycles, to your train, to your public transport, to your car. And in that area, I think there are really ways to work more together in an ecosystem, seeing how can we bridge the different mobility system with each other. Another one, road users charging. I think this is also something that is coming more and more present. It can also not be done without connectivity. We are in Belgium part of the new satellite road user charging project, where we as telco provide the whole connectivity, the onboard unit, the connectivity. We are the one that, of course, you say data is very important, and data is from the automotive industry, but you need to know that data comes from the car, through the network, through a central data center, and then goes through the users. The whole traject from the onboarding unit in the car, the telecommunication, transport of data, the storage of data is done in our data center, and what we try to do as telco is to bring platforms We call it like a data platform where you can then look at the data in an intelligent way. Because data on itself doesn't mean anything. We have a huge amount of data. The challenge is how do you assemble it, how do you structure it in a way that you can make it relevant. And that's a lot investments in, first of all, data center platform to store it, because it's huge amount, but a lot of IT and software investments on intelligent platform. How do you cope with this data? How do you sort it? And you can then have access to it through a user interface that's very often a user interface based on notification, on exception, on parameterization. So this is an area where we try there as well to bring our added value. A lot of things will happen in the insurance sector, where more and more you will go into pay as you drive or pay how you drive. So quite a lot of projects there as well, which are currently ongoing, also with type of onboard unit. I think onboard units is the beginning. I think tomorrow it will not be onboard units anymore, it will be connected cars. And that's where I think we have to see how we can better work with each other, instead of having for each of these applications a specific onboard unit for road users charging, a specific onboard units for insurance. If tomorrow we can look more in a holistic way at the ecosystem, how can we embed in the car some of these applications? But you need to know that these applications will not only be for the telematics of the car or for infotainment, you will also have a lot of additional usage for third party that will be in the car, and if you don't take that on board, it will then come in the car through onboard units. So I think you need to enlarge probably a bit the debate. Last one I will skip because I think it's not. Smart parking, we have a small video to show a bit what smart parking can mean in a more global way. Because smart parking is about sensor in the ground. It's about how you can link that through an application to the cars, and also how you can link that, and here you will see in the video, even through payment system in the shop. So perhaps it would be nice if we can launch this small video.
Ik ben Gerrit-Jan Riemer, schepen van mobiliteit en digitale agenda in Aarschot. En we willen mobiliteit stimuleren in de stad.
The municipality of Ascot will soon introduce an intelligent parking solution developed by Proximus subsidiary Mobile4, together with its partner Unithings. Parking spaces will be equipped with LoRa sensors. Car drivers will be directed towards the nearest free parking space without having to drive around looking for a place to park. As soon as he's parked, the driver can also arrange the payment of the parking space through the same mobile application. In Ascot, shopkeepers can also participate in the project. They can give parking credits to the customers making a purchase in their shops. In some cases, these credits can even be distributed automatically by a customer presence detection in the shop. Thanks to LoRa and the data from the parking sensors, the city of Ascot will also be able to optimize its road traffic management and increase the satisfaction of its inhabitants.
So that's one example, but I think it's telling you that there is a whole ecosystem around apps, around data, and nobody will be able to get there on a standalone basis. So we will need more and more to work together to make that possible. Wi-Fi is more and more demanded by people. We are doing quite a lot of Wi-Fi in public transport. More and more Wi-Fi is coming into the car. We have just announced that we have done a partnership with Audi Connect in that sense. And there again, you have the telematics in the car, but you have the place for a second SIM where you can put another SIM card, which is a local one, which provides a Wi-Fi hotspot for the user in the car, where you can then, from then a dealer perspective, a car dealer perspective, have added value for your country to your customer. So that's one type of model that is different from an automotive producer model where you put a card embedded in the car. Here we have a model where there is an embedded SIM in the car for telematics, but there is a local card for infotainment. I'll come back on that because I think it's important that, as the previous speaker said, there is no one-size-fits-all. Telecom is very complex. You have different needs for different applications, and you need to understand that it's probably not one-size-fits-all will work. So you will need to think in terms indeed of different application, different level of security. You have different type of SIM cards. Some are more secure than other. There are typical SIM cards we are looking at for mobile banking, for instance. These could be type of SIM card you need to put into the car on telematics, because that's key. I mean, this cannot be hacked. If your telematics system, your self-driving system is not secure, you really have a problem of safety. If your infotainment system is a more normal system, it's less of an issue, because there you can use a lot of application like you have on your smartphone. You can use it through your car being a hotspot. It's a very different problematic. The onboard unit is also another one where the information there is of a very different nature, probably needs different consolidation of data and different access model to the data. So very important that you understand that there are really different types of needs and of application for the SIM card in the card. I'll skip that one. I come to here because I think for a telco, the world we are looking at is the world of the Internet of Things. And a car is a thing in the world of Internet of Things. Like today, the world of Internet is very much a world of connecting people. We talk to each other, we send messages to each other, but tomorrow, the world of the telecommunication will become increasingly a world of Internet of Things, Internet of everything. We have today, on average, 3 devices per person. We think as an horizon of 3 to 5 years, we will have at least 10 devices per person, including more wearables, including cars, including all of smart homes. So a lot of multiplication of devices that will be connected. And for us, car is a type of device that will be connected to the network. It's a very special type of thing, the car, because it's a very complex one with specific security and safety norms. But you have to understand that it's one of a whole new ecosystem that will extremely develop itself in the future. To make that work, you need networks. Very often people forget that networks are needed for all this connected world. And today we have now the presidency of ETNO for the 2nd year. We have made some analysis at European level. If you look at the needs in terms of infrastructure, just to bring Europe at a decent level of infrastructure, to have, let's say, 4G connectivity all over Europe, to have high-speed internet all over Europe, there is a gap in terms of investments between what is currently foreseen by the telco industry and the needs of 100 billion euro. So it's a huge amount of money. Today we are very much confronted with an ecosystem within the telecom where the investments needs are soaring. More and more data usage is there. Mobile data consumption double every year. It's a real exponential curve. If tomorrow we have self-driving car, it will not double, but it will triple, quadruple every year, because the amount of data that are consumed by car, if you want real-time connectivity, is making an explosion of data usage, and so an explosion of the capacity we need to bring to the market. You need to understand that today there is already a huge investment scarcity, because the profitability of the telco sector has been reduced in Europe quite tremendously by lowering prices, by heavy competition. In the US, there are 4 players. In Europe, we have 75 players. In the US, prices for connectivity are double than the price in Europe. So it means that the ecosystem of the telco in Europe is not an easy one. And if you look at what is needed for the car, we are not talking about 3G, 4G, or even low-rise. You have seen in the parking, it's good for sensor, it's not sufficient for car. We are talking about an investment in 5G. And 5G means that today, everywhere where you have one antenna, tomorrow you will need up to 1,000 antenna. All those antennas will need to be connected through optical fiber to a backbone network. So we are talking on investments that are on top of what is already foreseen, billions of euro. So it is not there yet. Yesterday, I was with the Commissioner Oettinger from the Digital Single Market, together with all my colleagues from the telco industry. We had BT, Deutsche Telekom, Orange, Vodafone. You had also Ericsson and Nokia. And he was there saying we need to accelerate investments in Europe to make sure that we are ahead of the pack on development of 5G. The message of all the telco was really aligned, and it's not always the case. Everyone was saying, yes, we can do that, but we need a return on investment on the huge investment that will be needed. We also need more spectrum. Today we are not able to deploy 5G because we don't have enough spectrum band, either in low range or in high range, to be able to develop it, and we need standardization. And you need to understand that today we are not able to bring 5G to the market. We need first R&D, we need more spectrum, and the spectrum will need to be coordinated at European level, because if you get different type of spectrum in each different country in Europe, you have a problem to make an ubiquity and a global European connectivity. And we will need standards, and standards are extremely important. You must know that in the telco sector, standards are not always world standards. In the 5G, what we see happening is that the standard in the US will be different from the standards in Europe. Europe is more partnering with Asia to develop standards in 5G, which will be different from the standard in the US. So let's be careful if we do a lot of connectivity and agreement with US partner that they can also be rolled out to Europe. It's not necessarily the case because the standards of connectivity will not be the same. We also need standards from the automotive industry because we cannot roll out system or network that will cost billions of euro with different standards. So we need to sit together as telco industry, but also as telco industry with the verticals, as we call it, so with you, to see what are the standards that we want to develop together in the area of connected cars, because it will help us to be able to develop the network. Regulatory framework will be absolutely needed, will be needed at European level. I mean, cars are not driving only in one country, they go cross-country. Roaming is not an issue anymore. Roaming is disappearing in 2017. So I know a lot of people are concerned if my car goes from Belgium to the Netherlands or to France. That will not be the problem. That will work. We have roaming agreement with all the countries where in the past it was very expensive. Tomorrow it will be the same price. So that's not the area of concern. The area of concern is the huge investments we will need to do to provide you the connectivity where a car has real-time information with no latency. Today you can have information, but it takes 10 milliseconds to get information. The car will be 25 meters further down before it can react. If you have 5G, you will have a latency of 1 millisecond, so the car will be 1 meter ahead before it can react. That's the difference we are talking about, 25 meter or 1 meter. But we are talking billions of euro investments that you need to know. And we will need a business case. So we will need, as telco industry, to finance these investments. How we will do that, it's not clear today. We will need to find a way how we can partner with you, because 5G is mainly needed for car, how we can find a way to finance those huge investments. And security I've talked about. I think security for me is much more about thinking applications and devices and not trying to put everything on one, because it's much more difficult to have very high security if you open up your SIM card for infotainment, for YouTube access, Facebook access with a lot of different users. It's much easier to secure a closed environment, a closed ecosystem of telematics in the car with firewalls that you can really have on that level. So I think that's what I wanted to say. So there is a lot of opportunity, but it's still a big journey to be done. I think we need to partner together. We will not be able to have a connected car ecosystem in Europe if we don't sit together, telco industry, car manufacturer industry, together with Europe. We need to think standards, we need to think regulatory framework, and we need to think how we can build a business case together. That's why I'm here. So I'm not a negative person, I'm a very optimistic person. So I think we can do that, but we need to sit together, talk together. And the fact that I'm here pleases me a lot, because it's already to show that there is a beginning of dialogue. So please, let's continue on this dialogue. Europe will facilitate this. Oettinger has said that the next meeting he will have with the telco industry, he will invite some verticals, as he said, so certainly the automotive industry will be invited. So please come, because I really think we have common interest to develop this new ecosystem together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Leroy. Well, great insight, I think, from both industries. Really interesting overviews of what they are faced with, their challenges, and what we should all be thinking about. I'll reflect on it a bit more, but in the meantime, I will ask the first panel to come to stage and take the seats here behind me. If I have to summarize what I just heard in just a few words, I would say complexity is really an issue, not only because the car is a complex thing in the Internet of Things, but also because of the explosion of data. I also heard talking about the need for infrastructure and the need for investment. I heard about the challenges for the regulatory front, and also very much the call, a call on everyone really to work together. And these are issues that also the first panel of the day will really talk about. I'll make way a bit. I'll put their faces on screen, if I can move it. Here's the title. Yes, here they are. And I will take a few minutes to introduce all of them, because they are really distinguished panelists with an expertise in their fields, and I think it's worthwhile spending a few seconds on each one of them. Maria Alfayate is coordinating the CITS team in the European Commission's DG Move. She's here instead of Claire Depré, who was on the program before. And that's the DG that is led by the commissioner that we heard from earlier today. We are particularly keen, of course, to hear from Maria about her work with the team on ITS. And previously, Maria worked also in the DG Transport on clean urban transport and other ITS issues. And she's also been active outside of the Commission in the private sector, again, often in relation to transport. Then, Gerrit-Jan Riemer, he is Director of Future Mobility at Opel in Germany, and he's also the Emergency Service Outreach Manager, I need to say it properly, for OnStar. And OnStar, of course, is the Opel Connected Vehicle and eCall application. OnStar was launched in August last year here in Europe. It ran much longer already in the rest of the world, and it already in Europe has 20,000 subscribers. Gerrit has a degree in engineering, and he really believes that the large-scale eCall services are a prerequisite to the rollout of connected vehicles in Europe. Steve Phillips, he's the Secretary General of CEDR, the Conference of European Directors of Roads. And the CEDR brings together the National Road Directors of Europe. It's a platform really for the coordination of technical issues, ranging from road safety to financing, and also from ITS to procurement. I think Steve has seen the role of road authorities evolve significantly with the arrival of connected vehicles, and he has been a close witness, I know, of the strategic decisions that road authorities need to take. They need to decide really, do we invest now, or do we wait until demand has significantly grown? The next is Olle Isaksson. He is the head of transport of and automotive at Ericsson. Of course, Ericsson is involved in connectivity in multiple ways, as a provider of mobile network equipment, but also as a supplier to the vehicle industry and to road operators. Olle has an experience of more than 25 years in the information and communication technology industry, and he's also a member of the European Commission's ITS Advisory Group. Stephan Hönle is Senior Vice President Systems and Advanced Engineering at Bosch. He's been dealing with active safety and passive safety before. Bosch, of course, is a prime supplier of advanced technology to the automotive industry and highly engaged in new research and development at the forefront of the latest trends in technology. Stephan has been involved long in developing applications for connected cars and automated driving, and he is really intrigued by the various challenges and dimensions, privacy issues, safety, driving habits, I just name a few. Last but not least, Thierry Willemarck, who is representing really the drivers and the car owners here in the panel. He is the European Region President of the FIA, the Federation of the Car Owner Clubs. He's also the CEO of Touring Club Belgium, which he joined already in 2001, and he is involved in setting up the FIA University. And as I said, consumer voice, driver voice, representing here in the panel. The panel will be led by Joost Vantomme, who is the Director of Public Affairs at Phillips. Joost studied law. He has over 20 years of experience in legal, regulatory, and public affairs. He worked at Proximus before, at bpost, also in legal, regulatory, and public affairs. And he has been witnessing the EU telecoms and postal reforms from very, very close by. Joost, I think I've talked enough now. Please.
Thank you, Sigrid. Is this working? Good morning, everybody. We heard about Beyond Transport, we heard about disruption. I hope this is not a disruption panel or a disrupted panel. What I wanted to do with this panel is bringing the value chain together. The value chain from the user, the consumer, the buyer of the motor show nice vehicles, and the OEM at the other side, the guys who are producing them. And in the middle, we have a whole range of people playing in that field. To start with one person, because I asked everybody one person to start with and to be as interactive as possible, we have the policymaker. Innovation goes at speed of light. You remember the Vienna Convention, 1968, that was just 1 year. 68, this convention talked about horses, but also cars. This convention allows a lot of semi-automated driving today. So people in the 60s were already forward-looking. Not really thinking about autonomous driving, I guess, but at least. Question to the European Commission, leading 11 working groups on cooperative ITS across modes of transport. So cars, trains, buses, whatever rides on 3, 4 wheels or 2 wheels. How interconnected are we today? Obviously we're not interconnected. We are talking to each other. Question is, where are we today? We heard from the Commissioner this morning things about Beyond Transport. We would like to know, I would like to know from you, where are you with the draft recommendation which will be revealed this month at the Commission College? Can we have a sneak preview of that, or at least where are we today, and will there be a second round afterwards?
Okay, if you allow me to say something, I'm happy that I think, at least for once, if I recall what has been said this morning, I think we were a bit on the avant-garde of what has, I hear a lot about cooperation. I think for once, we started designing the platform, it was September 2013. We started to talk outside about the platform when we launched it. It was July 2014. Right. The platform was exactly about that. It was about cooperation. It was not about the Commission decided how do we see it. It was a totally different way of seeing it. It was about let's sit together, let's design together what is the shared vision and what has to be done. And let's then afterwards, when we have the milestones, let's then, as Commission, write what is the vision.
So it's a platform.
I'm talking about the CITS platform. So what I'm happy of what I hear today is that somehow I think for once the spirit was not that wrong. I mean, so I hope that something is useful for the future. So what we have got as an outcome, I mean, it's a huge effort of, as you said, 40 months of work. So it's impossible to summarize it in a couple of minutes. But I think what has been clear, or some of the milestones, if you want, is that to ensure interoperability and to maximize benefits, we need to agree on a list of, a short list, if you want, of services that have to be introduced in the first step in a short term, and have to be pushed as much as possible. And this has been agreed. We have a list that, as a platform, we have agreed that are the most likely to happen in a short term. We need a unique legal and technical framework in order to coordinate the efforts and to ensure the uptake. And this framework is needed. We have heard it also this morning, and it's needed because things are advancing, not just in Europe, but also outside Europe. And in other regions, these connected vehicles are already in the market. And also the OEMs have said that there will be, normally in the market in 2019, mass production, provided that the framework is there. So we better have the framework. On security, we know that it's really a pillar. Okay, the platform has agreed, and hopefully this report will be endorsed next week, that we need one common standardized CITS trust model and a certificate policy for all the EU based on a public key infrastructure and a defined based on an appropriate framework across the EU. Data protection, we also hear about it. It has been analyzed by the working group, and CITS messages, so CAM and DEM messages, seem that have to be considered as personal data because, in principle, users can be identified. Then we have to implement consent so that people have, in principle, to give consent to the use of this data with the possibility of an opt-out. And the work has to be continued. On a spectrum, we have got to an agreement on the coexistence and the mitigation needed for the coexistence of 5.8 band, which is used for tolling, and 5.9 for ITS. Hybrid communication, we also hear before about what is the situation today, on what is the potential for cellular networks in the future, but what is the situation today? Nowadays, CITS services cannot rely on the ITS G5, neither just on cellular systems for all the services. So the ITS platform has agreed that in the short term, we have to go to a hybrid system. Time will see in the future how things develop, but nowadays we cannot opt for one or for the other because it just doesn't work for all the services, and mainly for those who are safety critical ones, which are the most important. Access to in-vehicle data, that's a difficult one. We have heard a lot also about it. Here, probably is one of the working groups where more than progressing and on reaching conclusions, what we have done is mapping issues. So a lot of technical work, identifying technical solutions, and agreeing on guiding principles. And again, a lot of work is still to be done. International cooperation. We have done kind of an analysis of what has been done. We are, as Commission, very active on working already for years, and we continue with some regions like Japan and the US, and we have also opened, if you want, conversations with others. So I think this, we have looked at many other issues, but a snapshot of some of the pillars of what is in the report to be adopted next week. I would say these are some of the highlights. I don't know if I answered your question, but
I try to unlock some news of what we will hear from the college this month. Your colleague, Steve, he's managing the roads. He has ministries, public infrastructure. We heard about cooperation with the private sector from Philip de Backer, Parliament. We also heard about dinosaurs in the past. We should see to what extent can we unlock that potential and level up. How connected are these roads today? How smart are these roads today from your members or not?
Well, I guess, I mean, I should start by saying, I mean, from the perspective of CEDA members are mainly dealing with the national roads. Okay. And I think that's also an important thing to bring into this discussion, because it's, when we're talking about roads, we've heard already, you know, it's not one size fits all. No. So there are a number of different issues that we need to take into account here. One of the important things, of course, is that the roads that the CEDA members, the National Road Administrations, are responsible for is where most of the freight transport around Europe is carried. So it's very, very different than inner city regions or the rural regions. And the reason I mention that is because that tends to drive, if you like, the business cases that we have to look at. And all of this is driven by, although road authorities are not businesses, I mean, we have to think in a business-minded perspective, because we have to be able to convince those who are paying for it that we're going in the right direction. So I think there's a number of different elements in there. I mean, you ask how connected are the roads already? I'm sure most of the audience would say, well, not enough. Some of the road authorities might say, well, actually, we've probably done quite a lot already, and maybe we're struggling. So again, it's a difficult question to answer. What we are doing, I mean, what I can say we are doing, is we are trying to reach out to a number of different stakeholders now. I mean, we have examples like the Amsterdam Group, which is working on implementing, day one cooperative ITS systems. And if I can say, one good example of that, which maybe demonstrates the kind of challenges that road authorities have, is one of the technologies that's been implemented quite quickly is collision warning on road construction vehicles. Now, why is that a good business case? Well, actually, because road construction vehicles, the vehicles that are running on the side of the road, their lifetime is quite short, that putting some extra bit of electronics on that kit, it's a no-brainer. It's a low-cost system. It can be fitted on there. It can avoid collisions, and therefore it's quite easy to implement. That's entirely different than upgrading gantries and other much more permanent road equipment, which has a lot longer payback period. So, we are looking at a number of different systems there. I mentioned the issue of, again, where our priorities were, and I think it might have been mentioned already, although I was late. We are working quite heavily now on the issue of automation in relation to trucks.
Right.
Because that's where we see, from our perspective, actually there is quite a positive business case there, because it can, not only the issues of reducing CO2, but also potentially reducing congestion, reducing incidents on the roads, and a whole lot of other things. So there are big trials going on this year, and we are actively working with a number of different partners on how we can do that. The challenges that I guess we still have is related to the issues of how intelligent, how smart the infrastructure becomes. We've heard a lot about the digital infrastructure. We are thinking a lot about that. Erik mentioned from the ACEA perspective, they're moving from being hardware providers to being service providers. Road authorities are moving from being caretakers of asphalt to service providers. That's a big mental shift. That also means that we're having to become more multimodal minded, and thinking positively, not protective about the vehicles that run on the roads, but thinking how we actually work as part of a system. So, all of that digitalization, all of that use of that information, that sharing of that information, is very, very useful, or will become more and more useful for us in our business. And I don't want to go too much into all the issues of privacy and everything else that we've already heard of before, other than to say, as road authorities, as public authorities, the standards that apply to our treatment of data are very, very high. And those are challenges that we have to deal with and overcome, and find a way of building trust with the end users and with the industry and the others. So I think those are just some of the other ones. What I would say though is we've heard a lot about regulation and standardization. Now, one of the reasons I mentioned the Amsterdam Group and the Cooperative ITS Corridor is that's not an issue of regulation or standardization as such. This is a voluntary action between the different stakeholders. And I think there's a number of cases where we are finding that voluntary action, sorry to say, Maria, but can work much more quickly than legislation and standards. And yeah, and that's an area where we would like to develop. I mean, and we think, again, you know, we would think as representatives of national road authorities, with everything else that's going on in Europe, actually, if we can get the national road authorities cooperating together more, then that's good in so many different ways.
Right. That's very enlightening, though it's kind of, well, you only intervene if there is a kind of regulatory failure or market failure, then there is probably a case for regulation. Yeah. So going to the next speaker, we asked one question to the next speaker. Let me have the slide of the next one, please. So I think we need to discuss a bit the service provision. So the guys who are not transporting the bits and bytes, but who are managing them from a distance. And so Ericsson is one good example in Sweden, how they're managing that. The question is on the screen. It's a very long question, but Olle, I'd like to know what's your views on that. You have different angles within Ericsson. You're a switch operator, traditional networks and mobile networks. You are a service provider. You're doing a lot of other things. How do you view that, and what would be, again, the view for the end user if you see them? Please, Olle.
Yeah, it's a wide question and a good question. I think there are so many good things being said earlier today and by the speakers. It's really hard to add any unique general insight. But as we all know, the devil is in the details, and the implementation becomes the proof if our good thoughts are actually leading somewhere. Many people have been pointing at comparing the car with a smartphone or on wheels, or saying that the transformation that the telecom sector have gone through is a model for how can the transport system change as well. And I think there are a number of similarities. However, all transformation has to be put into unique context, of course. Experiences can be drawn, and I mean, we are, I think, a proof point as a company. We have been existing for 140 years and are present in 185 countries globally. And we have, during those years, really been transforming and see the importance of open reference architectures, the importance of adopting new business models. 10 years ago, I think the major portion of our business came from hardware. Today, more than 2/3 is software and services. More than 60% of our close to 120,000 people are working with service delivery in consulting and system integration and operating networks on behalf of the mobile network operators like Proximus. And some findings in this is, of course, that there is a trick if you hold too hard to your customers and to your present situation. I mean, it's as in relations. Try to hold a handful of sand. When you press the hand very hard, the sand will just sip out of your hand. If you open the hand and keep it loosely, you will keep it. And as we know, sand at some point will become silicon or might become oil, which is close to gold. So let's stick to the sand if we have it there. And in order to keep the consumer, I think that Proximus and other mobile operators can show how hard it was to keep all customers in their walled garden when it came to an end-to-end solution for mobile phones, content on the phone, and the network. Now it is a totally new open system thinking. We have a true global standard. We hope that the standard for 5G will be true global, avoiding those regional battles. I think that there is also another good thinking of this, or a good consequence of the system thinking and the change of roles in the value chain. That is, you come much more to a performance-based business model. X as a service. I mean, you have software as a service, you have platform as a service, you have infrastructure as a service. We talk about clouds. Many of those things are prerequisites to enable the Internet of Things, where the connected vehicle is definitely one of the Internet of Things. But this becomes also, I think, important for regulators. Regulators and authorities can also work with performance-based business models and requirements, perhaps avoiding too detailed regulation and end-to-end standardization. My favorite example is always the e-call, the European Tolling Directive, and the tachograph. All three good intentions to standardize and regulate things, but they are all stovepipe solutions from the data down to the module in the vehicle. So the reference architecture, we believe, will give the guidance to where are the true enablers of a service that we should encourage to innovate on. We do not know when we design the infrastructure what sort of vehicle we run on it. When we were designing 4G and when we are now designing 5G, nobody had the idea about the smartphone when 4G was introduced. But it's now driving innovation and it's enabling these things. We as a sector have to learn and interact with the transport sector, bringing this system thinking concept, where the vehicle is one component in the complete system. The vehicle is getting energy from the grid, so the grid becomes part of the system. We have an emergency response, so the safety aspect is part of the same infrastructure as well. And I think that this performance-based thinking, the open architecture with some clearly agreed connection points where data need to be shared, not thinking of too much individual standalone end-to-end services, but the enablers. And now going from 3G, 4G, which was an extremely consumer-centric business model for the telecom sector. 4G opening up for mobile broadband data. 5G is going to have a huge capacity of much more data, much shorter latencies in the signals, opening up much more interesting use cases for time-critical application and services. And this, I think, will require an understanding of the business model where it is not necessarily always consumer-driven. It's much more complex value chain with more stakeholders that have to be involved in this performance-based business model and evaluation.
Yeah, thanks, Olle. I think that's clear. So I think we need a big meeting room to put all these people together. We can use this room, for example. If we talk in verticals, like Mr. Leroy mentioned, like you mentioned, verticals, so Ericsson is applying the automotive industry, but also other sectors. There's a lot of consultation to do, a lot of consultation as well, but probably very good cooperation. And so we'll go back on that with the next round of questions. The next speaker, let's see what an OEM is doing. So the member of ASEA is doing. Opel actually has applied the potential of an e-call system from OnStar and some other applications. So let's hear from Gerrit how an OEM is behaving in that. And the question to you following e-call very closely. It will be mandatory in April 2018, so which is tomorrow, actually, because you're building these cars already to some extent. What are the main actions and challenges you see to that date, because that's actually tomorrow, physically? And what did you learn with OnStar? And what would be the potential of the implementation of e-call for all of us? Please.
Well, thank you for that question.
Yep.
Of course, there's technical challenges and actions that we need to take on. Of course, there's the e-call is a safety system, as we all know. The emergency responders need to be able to receive the e-call. Already in 2017, actually, there has to be hardware in place and processes in place. The vehicles have to be able to send out the e-call, and then the mobile network operators have to be able to transmit the e-call. That's, I think, technology that we can resolve. What I would like to get into, though, is that there's also people involved. It's, of course, first and foremost the customer that we need to look at, that his or her life is to be saved, and there might be a little bit of a different opinion. We think, as an OEM, still very customer-centric. We believe in the customer, we love the customer. And then there's also, on the receiving end of the e-call, is the emergency responders. We have 5 million fire people in Europe, so these also need to be, not the fire people only, but also the people working at the emergency response centers. They need to be trained. They need to know what e-call is about, and they have to be able to work the equipment and everything around this. And this is actually a good transition to the other piece of the question. That has been most of the work, actually, of implementing the emergency functions of OnStar. Was not the technology, it was really going country to country. Within Europe, we will be launching it in 31 countries, actually. Talking to emergency folks, talking to the ministries. I had also a talk here with Mrs. Depré to see it on a European perspective, being in these kind of forums, which I'm very grateful for. So it's important you understand the needs, and then if you understood this, you have analyzed it, you have laid out a roadmap that you can then implement a very good solution. That's on a European scale. The people Another challenge that we saw, we haven't expected it that much, was that it's still very fragmented. In Europe, OnStar has been around for 20 years in the US and later on also in China. We have 6 million, or over 6 million customers. We have had over 1 billion customer interactions, but we only launched in Europe 2 years ago. We decided to launch in Europe 2 years ago. We have launched in August last year. But it was, despite the language, lots of different regulations. For each country we had separate agreements on telecommunications. Also for emergency functions that we are able to cooperate, we needed separate agreements. So a very fragmented environment in Europe. So if there's one recommendation I would like to give out here, it's if there's any harmonization that can take place, and I'm sure everybody agrees here in all of their respective areas, that is something that would surely help, and that would benefit the customer, that would benefit the industry, and eventually benefit the whole of Europe.
All right, thanks, and success with the platform. So, and finally, before we go to the users, the supplier perspective, would like to know from Bosch perspective, for example, how do you see it, how do you feel this whole discussion? And the question I invented, it's a bit further away from connectivity. It's self-driving technologies, which is the next level, 5 probably. How do you see that developing? And will we face issues getting insurance companies to cover as well? Because we didn't put them on the table. We could have done it. But we need a big meeting room, as I mentioned. So maybe your views on that as a Bosch company.
Okay, let's touch the first point. Of course, we have seen today a lot of presentations. I think the community thinks very similar, by the way. And when we speak about today we have driver assistance systems, and we see now a gradual, I would say, move step by step going towards highly and fully automated cars. So we have to see that on a timeline. So today especially, everything that you see in the market that will come short to the market is from the how do we develop that, how do we release it to the road. That's, I would say, as a supplier for us always, it's safe and reliable. So end user experience in the focus, of course, as well, together with our OEM colleagues. So this is always in the heart of also Bosch. We have in our slogan, invented for life. So we are doing that, saving lives day by day. So we are exactly in that position. But now the complexity of today's system is, I would say, well understood. There are processes, there are release processes, there are ISOs. Everyone in the industry is following according that. Now, let's do now the next step. Whatever is called highly automated, the driver is completely out of the loop. The complexity of such systems, and just speaking now even without the connectivity, is tremendously increasing. So we are not talking about an exponential, it's even much more. So is it rocket science? I say no, it's much more. It's really a very interesting thing. And in this point of view, for example, how do you release it to the road? This is, for of course, always one basic thinking, especially speaking now as an engineer. How do you bring it really to the road? How do you release it? That you have the same safety standards, that the driver has no negative impact, no accidents caused by systems, for example, and so on. So this is a key challenge. And of course, also the release process. This is why we're talking in the industry. How do you release it? What are the standards? You cannot drive it anymore. You need 100 hours, 100 years of driving on a road to prove that a system would work in such a complex environment. This is not feasible anymore. So new methods have to be applied, new regulations according to the homologation process, for example. So how do we cope with it? Of course, it's system understanding on the vehicle level first. Secondly, the vehicle in the infrastructure. So it's really a complete holistic understanding of how the different, let's call it, functional change effects, cause effects are treated. And then you have to have, I would say, a system answer on that. So this also brings us together that not a single one, even in the industry, can fix the whole problem. And I think we have a clear understanding, and this is what I like also in the spirit of the room, by the way. Lastly, I want to touch the point of the data aspect of it. And now every car in the future will be connected. We have seen that, and we know it from the market investigation. So now we talk about cybersecurity, quality of services, and cybersecurity, I don't want to touch too much on that, because I think the whole industry, we as a supplier, we are developing products which are state-of-the-art, I would say technologies in the cybersecurity sense, which means the EE architectures, the networks, the gateways, the encryption technologies, and so on. Don't go here too deep. That's one part of it. On the other hand side, and we discussed here, and we have seen the quality of service aspect. When we want to have connected cars, and for example, a decision in the car is made by a signal which is coming from an infrastructure, you have to treat it, from an ACL level like it's an in-car signal. And of course, now then we come to latency, and a lot of the functionalities we talk about is, and Dominique Leroy mentioned on that, we have to speak in milliseconds, not in 10 and plus milliseconds. So there is no accepted market acceptance from the customer that you say, sorry, data loading, I do my decision later on. This will not work. This is no user acceptance. So therefore we need to have kind of a 5G and stuff like that. But until then, or at least if you have a certain coverage in areas, we truly believe that the intelligence of the car, so the sensor set, the know-how of the car, the decision making for a certain period of time until the infrastructure is ready, is driven by the car itself. And this is where we put a lot of focus on to develop safe components, same base systems, together with our OEM colleagues. Nevertheless, not forgetting having the infrastructure already in our mind as soon as it's there, use it as an additional signal, but in the future maybe that may even be completely changing. So,
right.
Yeah.
So quite a challenge. So we got the policymaker, we got the infrastructure managers, we got a service provider, we got an OEM obviously who is producing the cars, a supplier, and actually we need a user today still, because the car is automatically, if I hear my friend here in 10 years or what, you don't need a user anymore. You don't need the car owner and whoever. Mr. Willemarck, you're representing the users in Europe. Please, I have a question for you. What happens with all these data? We heard about data, we heard about intelligence. Some people collect data, some people treat them, some others do other things. Is the owner of the car able to decide what he wants to share and with whom? Please, sir.
Well, maybe first referring to Mr. Frequin, I do have a dog, but he's too kind to beat me and to prevent me to touch any button, and I am too curious to prevent myself to touch all these buttons. So I think the consumer is in kind of a schizophrenic position today. When you read articles about big data, the consumer is somewhere afraid of the syndrome of Big Brother watching you. And manipulation of data can be very dangerous and can also be very dangerous for democracies as such, when used through information on politics sides. I think that I was very pleased to see the presentation of Mr. Jonnaert this morning about the position of Alfayate that says that data needs to be shared with agreement and clear contract. He also said that the industry is also open to open up the access to data to third parties, but there needs to be a clear definition about what data we're talking about. Sure. And indeed, if the brake system is no longer working, as a consumer, please inform somebody that it's indeed no longer working and that somebody can fix it rapidly. I mean, the security of the car is of prime importance, and that kind of data needs to remain in hands of specialists, but maybe that specialists are not just car manufacturers and their networks, there are also other networks. When it comes to the potential of the digitalization, I think that as a consumer organization, we need to promote that. We need to promote it heavily because it has such a potential to resolve dramatic issues like traffic congestions that we experience in most cities around the world and where Brussels is scoring quite high. Unfortunately, I do believe that car sharing can be enabled more easily thanks to digitalization. We have seen the example of the parking application in the city of Aarschot If you imagine that 30% of cars circulating in the center of the city are just looking for a parking spot, you imagine the impact you can have through digitalization. But car sharing is also improving the utilization of assets. That in a first step might not be very enthusiastic for a car manufacturer because a shared car could replace up to 10 cars. But it's a car that will drive many more kilometers than a privately owned car. So it will have to be replaced more rapidly in the long term. We do believe, though, that there is a need, and I'm very pleased and I congratulate Febiak to organize this forum, because it's an opportunity to network and to establish communication between organizations. And I think that, as Violetta Birch has underlined, we need to open up our doors. We need to stop to work in insulation. We need to become more transparent and open in what are the goals and the potential possibilities, and work together so that we come up more rapidly with a strong solution and potential solution that are for societal benefits.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement. You would need to open the doors and open the eyes and so on. If we look to the OnStar platform with eCall, actually the first regulated application of ITS in Europe, took a very long time at the European decision-making process. And Philippe was actually steering that discussion on a self-initiative report, actually, because in the parliament. So, Gerrit, eCall, you have it. You have private eCall. Tomorrow you will have public eCall. You need the infrastructure, I guess, to do something with it. Can we optimize that? Or are there failures in the system? You see that from a EU perspective, global. How do you cooperate with infrastructure managers, with emergency services? What is the unused potential of that application, whereof everybody talks about it?
First of all, I think you're right. The eCall legislation was kind of, it seems like a small piece, but it set a precedence for a mandated connected car, if you will.
Right.
And nevertheless, OnStar offers this function when we launched it almost 3 years ahead of the mandate. So here is, of course, that in this time, there will be much more applications such as OnStar from competitors. There are already, of course. So there will be a lot of cars already equipped with an eCall system, a private eCall system or third-party system, as it's referred to. So it's very important that this is able to cooperate with the public, the mandated eCall system. And this is also part of the regulation. That's very good. So there's a cooperation possible. But in that context, of course, there's work to be done. The public eCall, car sends out an emergency signal, public safety receives it. That's rather simple. In a private eCall or third-party eCall, a private call center receives the eCall, such as the OnStar call center, which is located in Luton in the United Kingdom. And then private call center needs to contact emergency responders at the site of the accident or at the vicinity of the accident. So this basically triangle has to be covered. There has to be some maybe harmonization in place, how the data transfer, also the protocol that is happening between the private call center and the public emergency responders. And these are the actions that are now taking place,
right, yes,
where there's involvement.
If I would be in the place of Steve, I would say, hey guys, I have the infrastructure to manage. I need information. You can do two things. You can build your own systems, detectors, sensors, whatever, whoever. You can ask third parties to deliver you the information, or you can have a hybrid system. eCall is one solution to give you optimized information. Where is the accident? And what is the cause, if it's repeatable, I would say, what would be the cause of the accident? So is it the infrastructure linked to the car or something else? So do you use that up potential? Do your members seek that potential for eCall and probably other applications today?
I guess I go back and I'll try and be careful what I say. I mean, CEDA is officially in favour of eCall. Yeah. But that doesn't mean, and I think everyone has to recognise that the cost-benefit analysis that was done in different countries was very different. And that's something, okay, globally across the whole of Europe, it's absolutely clear. What I'm trying to say is because the cost-benefit analysis was, or the benefit analysis was very different in different countries, this opens up one of the discussions we've just had is,
Yes.
well, what about dealing with the other actors that we didn't engage with before?
Right.
And a classic one there, which actually I'm hoping the Commission will now, because the Commission is starting to open up looking at serious injuries, not just fatalities, which means that there's a different set of actors in the hospitals and the others getting involved, which means actually we're getting more data back. Now that's what I'm getting at now is by linking the kind of e-call data and that positioning data with the issues like the serious accidents and others, then we do think that we will get much more detailed information about where accident black spots are. So that could be very, very useful. Then we'll have to think how we would deal with it and et cetera, et cetera. But going back to your question, I don't think it is a case of moving totally to in-vehicle systems informing us what's happening will replace what we have to have on the road. But what we need to do is to supplement also with the greater cooperation with all of the other responders. And I think that's what you'll see from our perspective. There is much more of that when you see the traffic control centres. You know, a traffic control centre now is not just, you know, looking for the congestion and whatever. You know, the police are there. There's lots and lots of other services getting involved, and you're seeing that cooperation. And that's an interesting side, I think, of the, if you call it the ITS development that we're seeing, is it's driving cooperation between different stakeholders. It's not just the technology.
Yeah, Maria, please.
If I may compliment, because I mean the comment on the e-call and the cost-benefit analysis, in fact, brought to my mind the cost-benefit analysis that is a macro, if you want to study it, we have carried out for the CITS platform. And of course, I mean, it's macro, it's at European level and so on and so far. But I mean, one of the things that really clearly comes out is, okay, they come, in principle, the benefits, the ratio are 3 to 1 over the period 2018 to 2030, but provided that we look at bundles of services. And I think this is one of the key questions. I mean, e-call is one thing isolated. When we are considering CITS, we are considering that if we want to get the benefits, because the investment to get them in place is huge, to get the best benefits in the shorter time frame, we have to consider bundles. We have to consider packages of services. And we have to think on, and I'm not thinking that it's a package fits all everywhere, but we have to change the mindset.
Right. Would your neighbor have an example of such kind of bundles in maybe other industries? I'm sure they have.
You're saying bundles of services?
Yeah, bundles of applications and...
Yeah, I think it was very encouraging to see our commissioner's slide on the importance of horizontal layers in order to enable different type of services and different service innovation.
Right.
And to simplify it, I mean, you have the service, and then you have some business support system, and then you have the infrastructure. The service has its own business case. I'm not sure if the e-call can be a business case on its own on commercial terms, but more on society terms. But the enablers in terms of how to manage that information or that data, the infrastructure, if we now include infrastructure, the onboard unit in the vehicle and the network equipment of whatever technology along the roadside, should, in my mind, be a multi-service infrastructure, a multi-service business support system. And in our experience, every technology that has, so to say, even for good purposes, been single-purpose designed, will have a challenge to survive long-term. We see that in many network technologies. And now with the massive ecosystem working around the mobile networks, I think it would be wise to actually try to piggyback on some of those advantages on the infrastructure and the business support, still thinking about the service on its own terms. Yeah, and there, of course, you can bundle. I think e-call is could be a good information in a safety bundle from an OEM.
Sure, yeah.
So there's a lot of service bundles being done, possible to do on top of that, whether they are consumer-centric infotainment services with a safety multimodality and multimodality payment service, a lot of things.
Okay.
I can go on forever on that, but please continue.
No, maybe Stephan, what's your view on these bundles? Would we have, as a supplier, would they fit in that mindset?
I would say absolutely, because also we see it even in our today's world in the infrastructure of the car. We are collecting a lot of data, which is simply present in all the systems and then being aggregated in the cars, and you can develop a lot of intelligent, you would call it base services out of that. Just for example, also value contributing, wrong way driver. That's just one example. There you say, okay, you can collect by the sensors that are driving on board if the car is driving the right direction or are you on the wrong side on the highway, for example. So this is a contribution, yes, and this is a basic service that you can deliver, for example, this. The other thing is we are talking about this, what we call e-horizon, where you say you look around the bend type of thing, where not only the infrastructure give us information, but also you as a car, ego sensing, you do a lot of things, you analyze it, you put it on a back end and deliver services out of that. So I think exactly you're talking about business models and then the different elements of the layers. I would fully agree on what you say. And of course now there are different sources of data and different suppliers of data. And of course how the big game now, who is delivering what is the value stream and also the revenue stream. That's I think one of the challenges of the gold mine discussion that we had today. Kind of
oil mine, whatever,
oil,
data,
whatever it is,
currency. If we would be able to rewrite the pitch, to return the pitch instead of going forward, would we have done things differently? It's a very difficult question. The policymaker might say yes, no, maybe we did intervene too much in a thing that evolves at the speed of light, so we are always, by definition, we're slower than the innovation. Or, on the contrary, they could say, no, we are there to have a platform, to have people talking to each other. The users might have said, hey guys, all these data, we are a bit scared, so could we have been more proactive on this discussion? So just an opening, maybe a final question I would like to ask to you. Would you have done things differently, seeing this now, which is the most difficult question you can ever ask? Starting with the users in this perspective. Thierry.
Well, I think the user's expectation can only be linked to what is made available for him to buy. Restarting from the other perspective is very depending upon how the market is behaving. I think that we start to talk a lot about automatic driving, driverless cars and things like that. But when I hear that you need networks, therefore, and that you need another 100 billion euro investment and that you need a return on that, I'm sure the return will come because of traffic congestions is also a costly aspect of our economy. But doing things differently, I think going back to the comparison Violetta Bulch made with the launch of internet in the past and what happened in the past, that we might have a nice example about what has happened and mistakes that we have done in the early years that I would recommend to look at to avoid in this case particularly.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, maybe your neighbor from the infrastructure side. Steve.
I think we could have done things differently and better. I mean, one of the things that I think I would suggest is we could have started can I use the word, a more honest discussion much earlier with some kind of road mapping exercise on how to achieve these different things and breaking down the silos between the legislative actions, all we talked about today, but started that much earlier and had this kind of road mapping exercise. And also, and I think a number of people have commented that also today, is to look at the different segments. I mean, one of the things I think we're very, very conscious of is the enormous claims that are made in terms of safety.
Right.
But as we've already heard, I mean, let's be realistic. If 5G will probably have fairly good penetration in cities. My guess is it will probably have fairly good penetration on the, at least on the core 10T. But if most accidents are off that network, then who are we kidding when we're saying that we're going to make this, you know, so we need to be finessing and being more careful and, as I say, more honest with what we're actually trying to achieve.
The policymaker squeezed between the industry, the users.
Well, I don't know what we compare with, have we done things compared to what, but I think if I think on what we are doing as Commission, I think we would have done things in a different way. Yes, I mean, why are we doing things now this way? Because I think we realize that things could be improved. And this is why we are doing things. And I'm not just speaking as DG Move, but if I think on how things are being done by colleagues in DG Grow, in DG Connect, by what the Commissioner Bulc was saying today on the working together of the different DGs, by the way we are now approaching the link, and I would like to speak maybe a minute or a couple of minutes later on that, on the connection between the connectivity and the automation. I think definitely this is a result of an analysis of a room for improvement that existed from the past. Again, this doesn't mean that what is being done at the moment is correct. It is a try to make it better.
All right, maybe Olle, any?
It might sound strange coming from a technology-centric company or a technology operating company, but we should definitely have been clearer in our consumer service definition and showing that as the leading light through the whole design and standardization process. I think we failed to engage early in the call standardization, for instance, in order to show that this is not a standalone service in old technology, but it is a future-proven enablement. I think that we also should have argued much more strongly. We launched our Network Society vision in 2006 or 7, I think, and then we start to engage much too softly with the OEMs and the infrastructure managers, but really to argue stronger for breaking the barriers between physical infrastructure managers and digital infrastructure managers, like the telecom operators and the road operators, arguing much stronger for one responsibility of the total quality of service of the connected safety service, for instance. And also to show the applicability of the technology. In 2011, we showed in Germany together with Daimler and BMW on how 4G could have latency of sending virtual brake light, picking up a sensor from a hard brake and broadcasting that to cars coming behind. Existing technology, and really to prove that this is deployable in existing technology environment. I think we should have been more strong. That's also now why we are engaging in 5G. We are doing a number of national 5G programs together with stakeholders in the Network Society, where OEMs are definitely some of those. And we do that on a European scale as well. And really welcoming more stakeholders to be part of those ecosystems. Not only to prove technology, but to prove business models, to prove service understanding, to jointly lower barriers that we've had previously.
So we already have 4 pages that have been rewritten, or would have been rewritten. I hope we don't have a book at the end. So maybe Opel, OnStar?
Sure. I don't know what I would have done differently, but I know what we could have done faster. Because of course on this endeavor of deciding to launch OnStar here and today, we encountered so many things and we learned so many things that now that we know them, we know exactly already what to do. That's one thing. And then of course events like today are really helpful. I think it's really not only cross-functional, it's a cross-industry, it's a cross-people activity, the connected vehicle, and these opportunities as today that we can talk together are priceless. And I'd also like to continue that on now that we know each other. So that's also something that will make things better and faster.
Okay, that's nice. Okay. Stephan?
Okay, so now I have to disappoint you. I will unfortunately not say something different. No, but not kidding. I think more or less we are on the right track, what we have decided, and especially being the supplier in such a market. But I think also, and you know from our company, that we are again, looking on a broader scale in the IoT, because it's one thing is the car, and I'm talking about a car when I'm sitting here, but nevertheless, the challenge is to connect the connected car with the smart cities and with the smart home. And as you know, we as Bosch, we have stakes in all of those fields simply due to the fact because it belongs together. Also from the user perspective, to throw the ball to the end again, the user wants to have, I would say, no silos in his world. He wants to have a seamless, whatever it is, if it's a seamless transportation, a seamless information, so a seamless data flow at the end of the day. It doesn't matter where you are. And this holds true for the whole IoT thinking, I guess. And I think we are on our way and being, I would say, nicely established, if I think now in terms of the company itself. Nevertheless, I think also the challenge is, and I think we heard it through the day, is we have to collaborate more across industries. And the question is, are we fast enough? I truly believe also in that, because it's not only Europe, and I think we all know who is on the competition side with a lot of speed, with a lot of different thinking, and with tons of money. And I think this is where we all have put our heads together and be very open-minded to work together without the silos to come to, I would say, a really beneficial solution for our European nations here.
Right. These are nice words. Any closing words of wisdom you would like to spread to the public? Some of you? Maybe, yes, Maria?
I don't know if it is wisdom, but I would like to explain to the public or to convey a bit the message of what, how do we see, as I said, a bit the link between, because we have been mainly speaking about connectivity, we have said something about automation, and I would like to make a bit the link of, okay, what we have been done with the platform. I have referred, and during the process of the platform so far, we have basically worked on connectivity, and we have restricted the focus of the work to that because we wanted to progress in a very short time. Right. But I mean, this doesn't mean that we see this in isolation. Obviously, connectivity and automation, we see them intimately linked together. So I mean, what is going to come now? The platform will continue. The platform is supposed to let's say, to accompany the deployment with the delivery and hopefully the endorsement of the report next week by the plenary of the platform. The Commission will use this as a basis to write a master plan on the deployment of CITS in Europe that we hope to have ready by mid this year, so before the summer. I mean, again, this master plan is not supposed to have to be a regulatory framework, and this is why I was a bit upset when Steve was just looking at me and in that way, because really the whole exercise has been to try to see what can be done with other tools than regulatory framework and any type of legislative elements. Might be needed somewhere, but not everywhere. So this master plan, okay, and the platform will continue accompanying, and then at the light of the master plan, we will have kind of a transition phase in which we will be exploring issues that we have learned and we didn't have the time during this first phase to look at. And then when we have the master plan, hopefully we will have identified which are the issues that we should continue looking in the second phase. Right. So one of them obviously is going to be automation, and as the Commissioner was saying this morning, automation is not just the vehicle part, it's the infrastructure, and there are other elements of the system. So most likely part of these elements are going to be looked at in the context of the
thank you. Maybe we could call it regulatory agility, so that you're agile and just intervene when really needed, when the consumer or the infrastructure would really need it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this being said, I think we deserve some break. Let me congratulate all the speakers of the panel first to come over to have a good discussion. We all agree that we need to agree, and we all agree that we need to sit together to do cooperation in ITS. This being said, thank you very much. Give them a big applause.
Thank you. Thanks to the panel, indeed. This was our first panel, really very much focusing on the situation today, and I think we heard some great insights, and we've heard about the complexity and the challenges ahead. This afternoon we will have a second panel looking at the horizon towards 2025 and beyond. So we will have more excellent speakers to give you even more information. I also want to mention again our Twitter hashtag, because some questions have already come in, and we would like to put these questions to the second panel this afternoon. So if you have any questions you would like to tweet, please let us know. The hashtag is EAF BXL, and BXL stands for Brussels. So we'll break now for lunch. Thank you very much. I'll see you again here at 2 o'clock sharp. Thank you.